Dark Swan Song, a review of Dark Phoenix. First of all, the villain sucked. Spoilers, of course. The villain was terrible. You've got 100 great villains to draw from. Anybody from the Juggernaut to, I don't know, Galactus. And you pick Jessica Chastain. I'm not even sure if she had a name. A generic nothing. Whatever character she was, if she existed in the comics, then she sucked even there. Because there's no way this character was good. Ever. I was thinking the main reason this movie sucked was that it had no big events. No big ideas. And it reminded me of Justice League and Batman vs. Superman. Which I don't think were as bad as people said. But they had no memorable scenes. There's nothing where you're like, wow, that was a really cool scene. In either of those movies. Which I think may relate to, or even if it doesn't, my next point, that there was no good idea. There was no idea here. As opposed to like X-Men 2, where there was an idea of like the villains and the heroes have to unite against a common foe. Or The Dark Knight, the idea that there's anarchy. You know, a character that personifies anarchy. If you were to ask the writer, director, Simon Kinberg, what the big idea was behind this, I don't think he could answer the question without going on for like 5 minutes. Like basically giving an evasive political type answer. But back to the connection between a good idea and good scenes, great scenes. Well, the Joker in The Dark Knight, he's a great idea. The anarchy personified is a great idea, and it yields great scenes. Every scene with the Joker is great. And though I'm a fan of a big action climactic climax, The Dark Knight didn't have a lot of action. There was no action-packed climax. But the idea was so good that it carried it through, and nobody was disappointed with a lack of a huge action, going to blow up the whole city kind of thing. Remember in X-Men 2, X-Men United, I think, where Magneto breaks out of jail and he has those 2 metal balls and he does all that fun shit with them? Okay, so there's no scene that's cool like that. X-Men 2 had so many cool scenes. This one has like none. I gotta say though, I did download it off Pirate Bay and it's a cam version, so I missed a lot. But still though, I think paying attention to the visual, I didn't hear everything they were saying. Paying attention to the visual progression of the movie, I'm pretty sure it was uneventful, unexciting, uninteresting. On a side note, I remember 10 years ago I was trashing X-Men The Last Stand to my sister. And I was saying, God, you got the Phoenix. You got the Juggernaut. Why not just have the whole movie be about the two of them, fighting each other, having a face-off. And then after, and I guess I also talked about the idea of Phoenix versus Apocalypse as a movie. And then after X-Men Apocalypse came out, my sister says to me, you actually said that. You said, have a movie where it's Phoenix versus Apocalypse. So that was pretty cool. I predicted it, and they did it. I really don't understand why people didn't like X-Men Apocalypse. I thought it was infinitely better than First Class and Days of Future Past. And they finally gave me the action scene that I've been wanting all along, that Bryan Singer, he would never do that. He never gave the cool, enormous climactic scene, but Apocalypse did that. I thought that's probably my second favorite X-Men movie third favorite after X-Men 2 and X-Men 1. Back to the idea that there were no great scenes, no memorable scenes, and there was no great idea behind the whole thing. Stanley Kubrick once said, and I'm paraphrasing, that a film only needs 3 or 4 or 4 or 5 non-submersible units. That's what he called them. And I'm not sure exactly what he meant, but I think that what he meant was you just need 3 or 4 great scenes or great ideas, and as long as you've got those, you've got a movie. And you can, the other scenes can just build up to those big moments. Or, connect the moments together. Because Kubrick did not believe in a narrative structure necessarily. And, but in terms of these non-submersible units, this movie had none. There is not one scene in this movie that's like the money shot. And there should be a few of them at least. I can like name right away like 4 amazing scenes in Endgame or Infinity War or The Dark Knight or X-Men 2 or X-Men 1. You know, I don't really care about plot holes or crappy storytelling necessarily specifically. The Dark Knight Rises had plot holes. They all have plot holes. They're all ridiculous. How did the Joker know that the dude would be standing right there for him to crash the bus into at the beginning of the movie? That's ridiculous to me. Is he a genius? Like, how smart could he possibly be? Or in The Dark Knight Rises, Bane goes, it's just crappy dialogue. Bane goes, "So, you are here to die with your city?" And Batman goes, "No, I'm here to stop you." And that was the weakest thing I've ever heard. Like, of course you're there to stop him. You don't need to tell him that. What a terrible pussy retort. "So, you're here to die with your city." He could have said, I just thought of this right now. "No, I'm here to rise with my city." That might have been better than, "No, I'm here to stop you." Or how did Bruce Wayne get back to Gotham City if Bane burned all the bridges down? See, I don't give a shit about plot holes. I just give a shit about, you know, cool scenes and did you work hard on it. There's always going to be plot holes. 6 Infinity Stones, that's a plot hole right there because it's impossible. Like Hamlet, right? His father's ghost comes to visit him. Okay, plot hole. Ghosts don't exist. Oh, and there's a great scene where Mystique says that they shouldn't call it X-Men, they should call it X-Women because the women are the only ones that are awesome in the group. And I'm like done even talking about this subject. Okay, go ahead, call it X-Women, see where that goes. Forget about the fact that it's named after a name that came from like the 60s or something. Let's just rename it, let's just change everything. Hamlet, make that a female. Sure, why not? We gotta be politically... Fuck that. And it kind of made me realize that once Disney reboots X-Men, they're not going to call it X-Men anymore. So that's great. So I won't be watching that then. Thanks, guys. You've already... Another thing that this movie was sorrowfully lacking was momentum. Or shall we call it pacing. And that can be achieved in many ways. There's not just one way to do it. But this had none. You could up the ante. You could have the villain getting closer. Which is what Star Wars kind of did. You could have the plot lines all coming together, converging, which would increase momentum and pacing, which is what a lot of any movie with subplots should be doing. You could have a character die at a pivotal point, like the way Xavier died in Logan, at a pivotal point, like at pretty much, the middle of Act 2. I don't really divide things into acts. But that's when you have the character die. I mean, you could say that when Professor X died in the movie Logan, that it didn't really necessarily change the plot or like have effects on the plot. But the thing is, that movie was very personal. It was all about Logan. So the plot was really secondary and the plot was very simple. And all that mattered was that Xavier's death was Logan's his last friend. He had nothing now. And actually it did change the plot because Logan was trying to get Xavier to get onto the boat. That was their big dream. Now their dream's dead. So in fact, it did change the plot. But Mystique's death in this movie affects nothing. It just makes people hate Phoenix. But it doesn't change Phoenix's course. It was very uneventful and it happened at the wrong time. I mean, when Luke Skywalker lost his parents, that set him off on his journey, which he wasn't going to do. Phoenix was already going to go on that journey regardless of whether she killed Raven. So, I don't know. It just wasn't effective. One last thought on the subject of momentum and pacing. A movie that was amazing in its failure at momentum and pacing was Looper by Rian Johnson, where he decides to spend the second half of the second act and the third act on a boring farm. And I remember when I first watched it, maybe 5 years ago, I was like, are you kidding me? This guy's got like no sense of pacing. Why would you put that at the end? I mean, even if that's where it's supposed to be, you could have it, have flash forwards and flashbacks so that it's not on the farm, the climax on a boring farm. Really, that should have been at the beginning. After you've shown us the big city, the busy big city, and all these action scenes with cars and all this shit, you go to a fucking farm. That's why when he was announced as the director of The Last Jedi, I was apprehensive because I go, well, he's got no sense of pacing. And so it was. If you support gays, click like. If you respect blacks, comment. If you think women are people too, click the notification bell. And if you care about sick children, subscribe. Now I'm going to do micro reviews of all the Marvel Disney movies. Because I often hate the ones that everybody loves, and I love the ones that everyone hates. So I got to think either I'm crazy or everyone else is. I'm starting to think I'm crazy. So anyways, I'm on a site that ranks them from worst to best, but I'm just going to say whether I like them or not. You know, all of these movies I watched because they were part of a greater whole. They were all leading up to Infinity War, and they all were interconnected. But on their own, we'll start with Dark World. Thor 2, The Dark World. That sucked. That was terrible. No, wouldn't recommend it. Avengers Age of Ultron. Yeah, I love all of the ensemble pieces, so yeah, definitely worth watching at least once, probably twice. This would be my advice to myself. It's too bad that they made Ultron a comic relief when he should have been scary. There should have been stakes. It was too comedic. Yeah. Incredible Hulk sucked, mainly because they decided to spend the whole middle doing a love story with no Hulk and no action. Kind of like the way Thor 1 was. Terrible. And the Ang Lee's version was way better. And in fact, that was actually pretty good. Thor 1 was shit. Iron Man 2 was shit. Ant-Man was shit. And when I say shit, I mean, I guess passable, competent, but on the level of Batman vs. Superman, which gets all the flack. But these movies were no better. Captain America, the First Avenger was shit. Mainly because I hate war movies. I find them very boring. It's not like I'm against war. I just find war movies incredibly boring. Iron Man 3 was pretty good. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was alright. It was better than the first one. It was cool about Kurt Russell being a planet. But the problem with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies is that it's too comedic, so I can't ever take it seriously, and I never see any stakes. I really don't understand why people like those movies. Guardians of the Galaxy 1, I thought it was shit. It was just, I never was taking it seriously. Ant-Man and the Wasp was shit. It was just as shit as Ant-Man. I'm not even sure, they're like equal shit. Doctor Strange was shit, except for really cool visuals that were supposed to be in Inception. Those were great, but otherwise the movie was shit. Infinity War was amazing, like a masterpiece. I mean, as far as movies can be, it was a masterpiece. The Winter Soldier was shit. I don't like espionage. It was like a Mission Impossible movie, and I don't like them. Captain Marvel was shit, and I didn't even see it. Spider-Man Homecoming was shit, because there were never any real, serious stakes. And because Peter Parker is just a little kid, fanboy of Iron Man. He's not, he never comes onto his own. He's just like a little wimp, basically. The first Avenger movie was awesome because, it's the first of its kind, but also it was very well done. And sure, maybe too much comedy, but whatever. It was good for what it was. Avengers Endgame was amazing. Civil War was amazing for the big action scene that it had with all the superheroes in the airport. All the political shit was shit. Thor Ragnarok was good because it was non-stop visuals and the comedy was great. But I wouldn't recommend it as I don't know. It was just over the top. It was almost like a satire of itself. But yeah, I would say that was pretty good, I guess. Even though I kind of couldn't wait for it to end when I was watching it. The first Iron Man was amazing, of course, and I don't need to get into why. Oh, and this site I'm on, they rate Black Panther as the best of all of them. Okay, Black Panther was shit. I think it might have been the worst of all of them. Because it made no sense at all. Oh my god, really? I was recently talking to a black girl about Black Panther, and she was saying how awful she thought it was. And we agreed that it makes black people look really bad. If I was black, I'd be insulted that they're portraying me as being in a tribe where we hoot and holler and we have a death fight for who gets to rule the kingdom, like primitives. And, fuck, the whole thing was just such a mess. It was terrible. And, like, the Mufasa Lion King bullshit, it was a tired formula. None of it made any sense. Why is he the only one who gets the powers? Like, it wasn't even worked out. The inner logic within this universe wasn't even worked out. I mean, they don't even work out whether you can keep being challenged if you're king. Because, basically, you can. Which makes no sense at all. You can just keep re-challenging. The action scenes in that movie were shit. There was no climactic, big, Marvel-esque action scene. There was no memorable action scenes in that movie. I'm just confused, so I can't even talk about it. Anyways, that's all for now.